Does the Maxxis Dissector live up to the hype? Is it the perfect fast rolling enduro and downhill rear tyre? Or is it a great trail and downcountry front tyre? Phil from Trail Talk here, and today, after 5 to 6 months of testing, I'm going to be answering all those questions. So the Maxxis Dissector was designed in collaboration with Aussie downhill racer Troy Brosnan to be a fast-rolling, low-drag downhill and enduro tyre that works particularly well in dry conditions, that's kind of loose over hard, as well as hard pack as well. The center tread of the tyre is a bit lower profile than say a Maxxis DHF and DHR, and it's a bit more tightly packed too, and it's also ramped to help with rolling resistance as well. The center tread's also lined in kind of somewhat narrower rows, which I found really helps with braking traction, which I noticed on the Continental Trail King that has a similar center tread. And similar to the DHF and DHR, there is that channel between the center knobs and the edge knobs, so there's a bit of that transition. And the edge knobs are virtually identical to the Maxxis High Roller as well. So the Dissector is available in a few sizes, tread compounds as casings as well. So it's available in a 2.4 width as well as a 2.6, and that's for 27.5 and 29 as well. And that's in the EXO as well as EXO Plus casing in the 3C Max Terra compound as well as the dual compound as well. You can also get a double down and a DH casing as well, and they're available in the Max Grip compound too, but that's only available in the 2.4 inch width. So plenty of options there, unlike the Maxxis Aggressor, which is only available in the dual compound and is also a bit of a heavier tyre as well. So it's good to see there's another fast rolling option in the Maxxis lineup. So for the review period, I was using the 29 2.4 inch in the EXO casing with the 3C Max Terra compound. In terms of weight, you're looking at around 915 grams, so I'm pretty impressed with that weight given the kind of puncture protection that they got and the kind of style of tyre as well. And just for complete transparency, before we jump into the meat of the review, I purchased this tyre with my own money, so no obligations there. I can say whatever I want, and I'll give my pros and cons to the tyre as well. So enough about those details, let's get into how it rides. So let's start off with the climbing, and firstly, I was very impressed with the rolling speed of the tyre. It definitely lives up to the hype here. I was a lot faster on the climbs compared to the DHR that I was running before, and that mainly comes down to that center tread. It's a lot faster rolling because the weight, there's only around 40 grams, 35 grams difference between the tires. So it really comes down to the tread pattern there. Traction was really good too, and I really think it comes down to that kind of more horizontal line tread in the center. I find that really digs in well, and I never found that I wanted more traction compared to my DHR, except on the loosest of climbs. I think for someone looking for an enduro fast rolling tyre or someone that rides more kind of all mountain and trail, I think it's a great option for a rear tyre. It really strikes the balance between say a Recon, which is a faster rolling kind of more downcountry trail XC kind of tyre, and then a more aggressive DHR, DHF kind of setup. Okay, so let's go into descending now, starting with the tyre on the rear of the bike, and the tyre is fantastic. I 100% love it on the rear. Coming from a DHR on the rear before, I didn't miss the tyre at all. Going on it, there wasn't a learning curve or anything, performance straight out of the gate. But comparing them back to back, you do notice that the DHR has a little bit more braking traction. There's a little bit more confidence in the corners. The edge treads just stand up a little bit better and dig in a bit better too. And on the DHR, there is a little bit less of a transition kind of moving from that center tread to the edge tread. But this was after back-to-back testing, and as I said, coming from the DHR straight to the Dissector, I didn't notice this much at all, and I was super happy with the performance. And I would 100% take those small trade-offs in the difference for the extra rolling speed. And this is really noticeable in Australian conditions, which is kind of more hard pack, loose over hard. It's typically very dry. We don't get much kind of moisture here. And the dirt is very kind of loose and sandy. It's a really fun tyre too, so if you just want to go out on the trail and have fun and be fast, it's a great option. Because of that kind of more lower profile center tread, as well as that transition from the center tread to the edge tread, you can kind of get it into some nice drifts, kind of slide out a little bit before you catch the traction on the edge. It is really fun. But I did notice that those side knobs do not dig in quite as well as say a DHF and DHR. So if you're looking for absolute grip when you're on the limit, really getting over on the side and digging those side knobs in, you did notice that the DHR and DHF do hook up a little bit better. And there was 1 or 2 occasions where the kind of side knobs on the Dissector kind of fell away and I lost traction. So that's something to note if you really are pushing on the limit of the tyre. So moving on to having the Dissector on the front, and I only had a few rides on this because I really didn't like that setup. So sorry for the lack of footage here. But I can see some kind of more trail and kind of more downcountry. I know people hate using the term downcountry, but that kind of more style of riding that's more kind of XC trail, I can see people running on the front there. But for my kind of riding, which is kind of more all mountain to enduro, I noticed what makes this tire a great rear tire detracts from it being a great front tire. So the first reason for that, as I said in the rear, I kind of liked how it drifted, but on the front you do notice that that kind of transition from the center tread to the edge tread is definitely amplified, especially compared to a DHF. You notice that a little bit, but on this you notice it a bit more. So I definitely noticed there was a little less confidence leaning the bike over. Sometimes I did kind of notice that that transition was a bit too much and I lost a bit of confidence there. And secondly, when I noticed on the rear that the edge knobs fell away a few times, that was amplified up front as well. So really kind of pushing the front end into corners, leaning it over, that happened a bit more frequently. And I really like those edge knobs to kind of like stand up tall and strong as you push it into a corner, and I just really couldn't trust the front end with this tire on the front. But that being said, if you do kind of more lighter trail and XC and that kind of stuff like that, you're probably used to kind of that lower levels of traction. So I think if you're looking for a faster rolling front tire with a little bit more grip than say a Recon or lighter XC tire, it might be a great option for you. But when it comes to a faster rolling front tire, I think having a tread pattern with a more consistent contact patch is definitely a better option. So Maxxis, if you're listening, say something like a Recon tread pattern that's a bit more consistent, that's slightly more aggressive with those knobs, might be a great option for a faster rolling kind of more trail or all mountain front tire, or more of an enduro kind of all mountain rear tire. And lastly, because I know a lot of people want to know about how it performs in the wet, in kind of more wetty clay soil, it definitely clogged up a little bit. In damp stuff, it was fine. So a damp sandy soil in Australia, I didn't notice an issue, but as it starts got a bit more clay, a bit more tacky, I noticed that it clogged up pretty quickly. So I definitely think it's a better option for that kind of more dry conditions, loose over hard, hard pack, or more well draining soils that we've got in Australia. So more sandy stuff, great in the damp there, but as it starts to get a bit more clayey, then I would look for something else. So after kind of around 5 to 6 months of riding, doing kind of typically 3 to 4 hours a week, I had 0 punctures with the tire. I'm pretty happy with this, but I was also running Tannis in the rear as well for the majority of testing, so that's something to note as well. When it comes to the wear of the tire, I was pretty happy with the center tread. There's kind of more longer horizontal rows, similar to the Continental Trail King I tested a while back. I found they got chewed out pretty quickly because they're actually really effective at braking. They kind of dig in really well, so I found they did get chewed out, but on this, they actually weared pretty well, so I was pretty happy with the wear there. When it came to the edge tread, I did experience more wear there, so there was a little bit of undercutting. As you can see on some of the knobs, you can pull them up a little bit. I think this is pretty typical of Maxxis tires. After a while, they do get a bit of that undercutting, but on this one, I found it weared a little bit more than a DHF and DHR. I think it mainly comes into those side knobs being as burly as solids, so they do cop a little bit more of a beating when you lean the bike over and trying to get that grip. But I have noticed over the period of testing, because of that undercutting, the side knobs are becoming slightly less stable. So I have noticed that traction has reduced slightly over the testing period. So not the best there, but nothing to really cry about. This is pretty standard. Rear tires cop a beating, so you expect them to wear reasonably quickly. Okay, so let's do some comparisons now, and I won't compare it directly to the DHF and DHR because I've done that mostly throughout this review. But let's start off with the Maxxis Aggressor. So hands down, the Maxxis Dissector is a better tire than the Maxxis Aggressor. Going from the DHR to an Aggressor, I immediately noticed the lack of grip. I think this mainly comes down to being only available in that dual compound. It really would be nice if they came in that 3C Max Terra compound. But I noticed the Dissector, it's faster rolling, it's lighter too, so it's around about, I think 100 grams almost difference between just the exo casing to exo casing. So really big weight difference there. So I don't really know where that comes from, but yeah, big weight difference between the two tires. So the Dissector, faster, more grip, lighter too. All of those things make it a better tire. Onto the Continental Trail King now, which I reviewed a while back. Terrible video, but if you want to check it out and kind of my thoughts on the tire, check that one out. I'll put the link in the description. But I really like this tire on the rear. If I could get myself to run 2 different brand tires, front and rear, I probably would still be running it, but I'm not about that life. They're both pretty similar tires. If I was doing more wider terrain, so everything from wet, dry, all those kind of things, I'd probably run the Continental Trail King. It definitely clears mud a little bit better than the Dissector. But if you're typically riding in kind of loose over hard, dry conditions, I think the Maxxis Dissector might be a better option for you. And another plus for the Continental Trail King, I would happily run that tire up front. The Dissector, not so much. So that's something to note as well if you're going to run the same tire front and rear. In terms of durability, the Maxxis Dissector wears a little bit better on the center tread, but not as good on the edge, and then the opposite for the Continental. So I found that center tread on the Continental weared out a little bit quicker, but the edge tread was a little bit more durable. So overall, between those two, really pick the tire that best suits your conditions and needs. Now lastly, onto the Schwalbe Hans Dampf, and I had this tire on a few rides on my Polygon Siskiyou T8, so it came sanded, and that was in the speed grip compound, so not even the soft compound. And to be honest, this would probably be my pick of the bunch. It feels quick, it brakes well, and you've got a really consistent tread pattern there, so you've got grip wherever you lean the bike over, and I really like that about this tire. I can't attest the long-term durability, unfortunately, but if I was going to get this tire, I'd probably run the speed grip in the rear and then a soft up front for even more grip. So if you do want to venture out of the Maxxis ecosystem, I would definitely check out that tire as well. And I'd also like to test out the new knobby nick as well, because the new tread pattern on that looks pretty interesting too. And just quickly, before we go into the pros and cons, if this review did help you out in getting the tire, I've got a few affiliate links, so one for worldwide Cyclery, so if you live in the US as well as worldwide, and I've got one for Bicycles Online in Australia. So if you do want to grab the tire, it'd be awesome if you can get them through that link, because it's a great way to support the channel and it lets me continue doing more of these independent reviews where I purchase the product. So does the tire live up to the hype? And I think if you're a big fan of Maxxis tires and you only run Maxxis, I think it does. It's fast, it brakes well, and there's decent levels of grip too, and it's a fun tire as well. You can really drift it into some corners. But for me, it works best as a rear tire only. I didn't really enjoy it up front. And if you really are on the limits of the tire, I think you'd prefer the edge tread of the DHF and DHR. It just digs in a little bit better and there's a bit more confidence there too. But with that being said, if you want a faster tire that grips half decently, then it's your best option in the Maxxis lineup. But once you step out of the Maxxis ecosystem, things are really heating up at the moment. It is tough to match the rolling resistance to braking traction of the Dissector, but when it comes to the consistency of the grip, as well as the ability to run the tire up front in confidence, there's a lot of competition from the Continental Trail King as well as Schwalbe Hans Dampf. And in my opinion, if you're planning to run those tires up front and in the rear, I think they're better options. With that being said, the Dissector is a great option if you're looking for a great fast rolling rear tire to pair up with a DHF or DHR up front, or even an Assegai as well. So there you go, there's my review of the Maxxis Dissector. If you have any questions or if you've experienced something different with the tire, let me know in the comments, I'm happy to have a chat. But other than that, if you've got any other questions about the tire, leave a comment as well and I'll get around to answering it. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel as well. And as always guys, thanks for watching. See ya.